This video is brought to you by Surfshark, who for years have delivered humanized privacy and security solutions to safeguard your data and privacy online. Virtually travel the world, browse privately by encrypting your internet activity, block ads and malware that get in your way, and much more thanks to their easy-to-use tools. Plus, get an extra 4 months when you sign up using offer code SKILLUP at checkout. More details after the video. Hello! I recently got the chance to visit Nintendo HQ in Melbourne, Australia to play a bunch of upcoming Switch 2 games. I don't think that any of these need their own dedicated video, so I thought I'd just combine them all into one. It was a bit of a strange event, I will say, because typically when you go to these things, you preview just one game, and it's almost always a first-party Nintendo title. Instead, this time we got to try out a total of 4 games, and it would have been 5 had the pithily titled Super Mario Bros. Wonder Nintendo Switch 2 Edition Meetup in Bellapel Park was available, but alas, the build that got sent from Japan wasn't working, and so we had to miss out on that one. I actually was quite bummed about that because I love me some Wonder, and I would gladly play more of it. So what did we get to play? Well, I got to play Mario Tennis Fever, which I had zero interest in walking into this preview, but I ended up really enjoying that one, and I can definitely see that being a nice addition to the whole family lineup thing. I got to test out the Virtual Boy, or the 2026 edition of it, which is basically a plastic or cardboard visor that you slot your Switch 2 into, and then you can play games like Pinball or Wario Land. Not sure who exactly this is for, to be honest, but we'll come back to that. The last 2 games were very unexpected because they weren't actually first-party Nintendo titles. Instead, they were upcoming titles from Capcom, namely Resident Evil Requiem and Pragmata. I got to spend about 30 minutes with each of those games in both docked and handheld mode, and I'll tell you what, they ran really well, to the point where I don't think you'll find yourself thinking about the clearly downscaled resolution. You'll be far more focused on how smooth and reliable the frame rate is. Unfortunately, I was not permitted to capture anything, but I could do some over-the-shoulder filming. Do note, though, that the camera I was using to record at was running at 25 frames a second, so it's not at all representative of how smooth these games actually look when they're running. Also, gameplay footage I show you of Resident Evil or Pragmata is captured on other systems, since I don't think Capcom has released any official Switch 2 B-roll yet, or if they have, they haven't sent it to me. Okay, that's enough setup. Let's take a look at Mario Tennis Fever. I actually didn't know this, but the very first Mario Tennis game was on the Virtual Boy back in 1995. Since then, there have been 7 Mario Tennis titles across different generations of hardware, and they've all added different things, like an expanded roster of characters, and new court types, and a single-player career mode, and new gameplay modifiers like power shots, all that sort of stuff. Mario Tennis Fever basically says, okay, we'll do all of that, and then we'll add even more stuff. It's a culmination of a series that began over 30 years ago, incorporating the series' best ideas, while adding plenty of its own to deliver what feels like a real ensemble package. I got to spend quite a bit of time playing this, actually, like an hour and a half maybe, and the time actually went by fairly quickly. The main shtick with Fever is the addition of Fever Rackets. So the way this works is that you select your character, Mario, Luigi, Piranha Plant, etc., and then after that, you choose a Fever Racket. There are a lot to choose from, like 30 in fact. As you play, you'll charge a Fever meter, and when it gets filled up, you can then do a Fever shot, which has this big wind-up animation, and then when the shot lands, it activates an effect. The effects can get pretty crazy. The ones you're seeing here do things like leave fire, ice, or sand traps on the court. It's total mayhem, and it only gets crazier in a doubles match where there can be up to 4 of these effects active at a time. What I liked about these Fever Rackets is that there's different archetypes. They don't all just leave shit on the court. Some of them make you run faster. Some of them create a doppelganger who will play alongside you. Some of them, like the Bullet Bill racket, will make your shots essentially impossible to return. So your moment-to-moment gameplay experience can change considerably based on which Fever racket you've chosen. It's not all about leaving obstacles for the other player just to dodge on the other side of the court. Oh, and by the way, your opponent can actually reflect the Fever effects if they manage to hit the Fever ball without it bouncing. And I definitely got into a few extended volley sessions where we were both desperately trying to kick the ball up to avoid the Fever effect. It was a good time. The Fever effects are really strong, but they don't constitute a sort of I win button, since you can play around their effects, and because there are other traditional shots, and mastering them is actually how you win. Like the flat shots and topspin and slices are all mapped to the face buttons, with things like drop shots and lobs possible using button combinations. Add to that things like shot direction and the need for proper positioning. There's a real skill ceiling here, not a particularly high one, I suspect. This is a family game primarily targeting kids after all, but you do need to think strategically instead of just spamming A while waiting for your Fever bar to recharge. There are a bunch of different game modes modes like this one where you play inside a very grim looking racket factory, and if you hit the ball in the right spot, a fever racket will appear. There's another mode where you score points by hitting the ball through a ring. Another Mario Wonder theme mode where the court transforms with wonder flowers and then you need to accomplish different objectives that change every time. A pinball mode, the list goes on. The beefiest mode though is the single player campaign mode, which is a little weird actually. The setup is that Mario and Luigi got turned into babies by a magic cloud, and as such they've lost all their tennis skills. It's best not to think about it too much. Now they have to train their way back to adulthood by completing various minigames to improve their core stats, defeating opponents along the way. I didn't play too much of this mode, but what little I did play seemed to be just enough to get me interested to play through the whole thing. Perfect for those who are planning on picking this up who don't have other people to play with and that don't want to play online. By the way, this is exclusive to the Switch too, but there's a game share feature, which means that using local play, up to 4 players can play using just 1 copy of the game, and 3 of those could actually be on Switch 1 devices if you wanted to, so that's nice. I also tried out the motion controls. These are not good. You're really just swinging your arms around here and hoping for the best, but look, honestly, this mode is kind of just for kids to have some fun, and the selection of fever rackets in this mode really reinforces that, because there's only about 6 to choose from in this mode, and all of them are assist type, meaning they help you reach the ball faster or get it back easier. And yeah, look, if you hand, a motion controller to a 4-year-old and they start swinging their arms around wildly, they're going to be able to play and probably beat you, because that's how it works. So I think mission accomplished with this mode. So look, overall, I had fun with this. I really did. Similar to Kirby's Air Riders, this is a game that really needs someone sitting next to you to get the most out of it. There is like an online mode and even like a ranked mode if you really want to get serious about it. But I think most of us are just going to want to whip this out when we have, some people over or want to play with the kids. And I would happily do that because this package feels really great to play, but also really robust. Like 30 characters, 30 fever rackets, a dozen chords, heaps of game modes, just a huge amount here. And I suspect this will be a nice thing to keep installed since you're sure to have a good time whenever you boot it up. Okay, so that's Mario Tennis Fever. Now let's take a look at the Virtual Boy. Okay, so look, I'll keep this part brief. I think it's highly unlikely that anyone is gonna start playing this and go, wow, Nintendo really made a big mistake by not supporting this more. It's far more likely that you'll try this out for like 5 or 10 minutes and go, well, okay, that's done. I've had enough. It's by no means a bad experience trying this out, and in fact, I'd say it's actually quite novel and fun in the way that trying out any old piece of retro tech is novel and fun. You put your head against the visor and see it for the first time, and you're like, oh, interesting. The all red visuals and early attempts at the 3D experience and the way perspective shifts are used to a really clever effect. It's interesting, but it's also really, really old and clunky and ugly. It was a really experimental piece of tech from like 30 years ago, so, what do you expect? I spent some time playing Galactic Pinball and Wario Land. I spent about 10 minutes with each of them, and I didn't really feel the need to play much more of them, but I also put in a few minutes with Red Alarm, which is kind of like Star Fox, but with wireframe graphics. Not great to play through in 2026, but I probably would have gotten a kick out of it back in 1995 or whatever. But then again, back then, we thought that Lawnmower Man was, a really great representation of what VR would one day be. So what do we know? Just to be clear, the plastic visor you are seeing here is going to be on sale at retail for like $100 US or something. But there's also a cardboard visor thing that you can get for $20. In order to play the actual Virtual Boy games, you will need a Nintendo Online Expansion Pack membership, as you won't be able to purchase any of these games directly. So look, ultimately, I think this is a nostalgia play that's intended to ship physical units of this visor so that people can keep them as collectibles to put on their desk or their bookshelf or whatever. Like, I really can't see people playing much of these games because they're just like too old, and the experience of having to sit there hunched over a desk or physically pressing a visor to your face, that is not a pleasant way to play video games. But if you've ever wanted to have a Virtual Boy sitting on your mantelpiece to impress your friends or make your Zoom call background look more interesting, then this is your moment. All right, that's all the first party stuff out of the way. Let's talk now about Resident Evil Requiem and Pragmata. Okay, just a reminder of what I said at the top. The over-the-shoulder footage that you're seeing here was captured at 25 frames a second, so the actual game looks way better and way smoother, and any B-roll footage we're splicing into this video was captured on other devices, not Switch 2, because I don't think any Switch 2 B-roll exists for these games. Oh, and just another reminder, these games are running natively. They're not cloud stream versions like the Resident Evil games currently available on Nintendo's eShop. These are running on your actual hardware and fingers crossed won't require an internet connection because you never really know these days with all the DRM bullshit going on. Okay, top level, pretty blown away by how well both Resident Evil Requiem and Pragmata run on the Switch 2, but at the same time, I guess I shouldn't be. After all, Capcom has ported all of their modern Resident Evil games to iOS platforms, except of course, Resident Evil Reverse. We are all waiting for that one. Let us know, Capcom. While the visuals are really downscaled and heat management is definitely a problem on older gen devices, they're pretty damn playable on an iPhone 17. Personally, I don't enjoy playing games like this on an iPhone because the screen is simply too small, but the Switch 2's 7.9-inch screen, that is not a problem. So coming back to that point about performance, yeah, you can totally play both Pragmata and Resident Evil Requiem and expect a smooth experience. The Nintendo rep wasn't able to confirm the exact frame rate for me, but I've read unconfirmed reports that the games are targeting 60 FPS, and I would believe it. It's either that or it's like an extremely good 45 FPS, but yeah, they both felt extremely smooth and extremely consistent. It wasn't a case of there being massive FPS fluctuations or stutters either, it was very solid. I read a headline that when the Pragmata development team first saw the Switch 2 port, they were surprised by how well it was running, and that was exactly my experience as well. In terms of visual quality, this is definitely where you're making sacrifices, as you can see the dynamic resolution scaling and or AI upscaling kicking in really hard, resulting in some images that can look quite grainy, never ugly as can sometimes happen when developers haven't dialed this stuff in correctly. But yeah, I'm showing you some PC or PS5 gameplay on screen right now, and the actual game definitely does not look anywhere near this sharp. There is a notable clarity downgrade, but it's not so downgraded that it looks bad. I would clarify that what I'm saying here, I think mainly applies to playing the game docked, because on a really large 4K display, you can totally see those imperfections, but when you're playing on a smaller, lower res screen, you notice those imperfections less. They're still present for sure, but a lot of that visual messiness gets covered over by the smaller pixel count. So TLDR, the Switch 2 ports of these upcoming Capcom titles are looking kind of great. And you might say, well, that's not much of a headline, but I'll remind you that throughout the life of the Switch 1, terrible unoptimized ports were pretty typical, and in fact, certain first-party Nintendo games also ran like shit. Looking at you, Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom, and every Pokemon game. So to be getting day one Switch 2 ports for some of this year's most anticipated third-party titles, and for those ports to run well, that is definitely a good news story, I think. As for the games themselves, it's hard for me to say too much about Resident Evil Requiem because the Grace demo I played through was so short, but I love what I played. I think the presentation in the cutscenes is absolutely off the charts, and the voice acting is just like unbelievable. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the best the franchise has ever seen. I mean, I've only seen a small snippet of it, but I feel like it's at that level. The decision to let you toggle between first and third person is nice, though I do think that the first person perspective for Grace is better, more terrifying and immersive, while being able to pull back to third person as Leon is kind of a must for a dude who roundhouse kicks as often as he does. Overall, I think Requiem is looking fantastic. I didn't love Village, to be honest, mainly because I think its theme park approach to horror didn't quite land for me, and also because I hated Ethan Winters with the Fury of 1,000 Suns, but I'm liking Grace so far, and Leon is Leon, and it's impossible not to love him. It's all looking green across the board, I think, and I'm looking forward to that release on February 27th. As for Pragmata, I will say that this is the second time I have played this, and the first time I was able to fight the boss at the end of the demo, since previous build had it blocked off. The first time I played this, it didn't really click with me, as it felt a little too finicky, and dare I say gimmicky, but playing through it again, it really started to click. If you're at all unfamiliar, the combat is centered around hacking the defenses of the robot enemies you're fighting, using the D-pad to navigate the hacking grid, and the rest of the controller to move and shoot. It started to come together when I was getting the hang of hacking while also dodging incoming attacks, and so it becomes this fairly demanding but rewarding like finger dance, where your fingers are tapping away madly while under huge amounts of pressure, just like, you know, Hugh Jackman in Swordfish, but that was a different type of pressure. Anyway, the boss was great as well, kind of reminded me of Ed 209 from RoboCop. I am not sure why we are making so many old movie references at this point, so this feels like a good time to wrap up the video. TLDR, Mario Tennis Fever is fun, and the package is looking fairly meaty, and it'll be great as a party game or to play with kids. The Virtual Boy will look really nice on your shelf, but I think that's about it. And both Resident Evil Requiem and Pragmata run surprisingly well on the Switch 2, with a really nice frame rate in both docked and handheld, made possible by either upscaling or dynamic resolution scaling, or both. The image isn't what you'd expect from a PC or PS5, but it's more than enough to make you happy, especially if you're playing in handheld mode. And that is it. That's the video. Thank you for staying right through the end. I do appreciate it. Please do drop the video a like if you liked it, drop it a dislike if you didn't, subscribe, ding the bell, all that good stuff. Thanks again for watching. Appreciate it. Just as I appreciate this video's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Watch, shop, and browse where you want to with a selection of online tools that let you take charge of your internet freedom with this video's sponsor, Surfshark. It's always the worst when you want to start a show that you've been meaning to watch, only to see that it's geo-blocked to a country you're not in. Surfshark lets you sidestep many of these restrictions with a click of a button, virtually teleporting you all over the world so you can watch or play whatever you please. Online shopping can work the same way. It's summer here in Australia, a great time to travel and relax, so finding a good deal on a hotel or a flight can help keep your mind at ease while you make plans. Surfshark lets you quickly and easily shop from a variety of different locations, so you can be sure you're getting a good deal and you can enjoy your vacation to the fullest. In addition to letting you browse the web freely, Surfshark helps you keep your data safer through their vast suite of data protection features. One of their newest is an email scam checker, where Surfshark will scan your emails and warn you if any are at risk of phishing or contain hazardous links. Sometimes it's really hard to tell whether an email is coming from a source that genuinely needs your information or just wants to steal it for malicious purposes. With Surfshark as your first line of defense, you are much safer from these sorts of malicious attacks and scams. It's super convenient since Surfshark can be used on a range of devices from PCs to phones to tablets and more, and their intuitive user interface makes it super easy to use. Sometimes it's as little as one click and you're away. I love it. I would never not have it installed on all my devices. So if you want to check it out for yourself, you can visit surfshark.com/skillup. And if you use offer code SKILLUP at checkout, you'll get an extra 4 months. A great deal for a great product at surfshark.com/skillup. Offer code SKILLUP at checkout for 4 extra months. Thanks Surfshark for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.